This past weekend, I attended the world's biggest content event, the 1 billion follower content summit, which was hosted in Dubai. And in this video, I'm going to give you my honest review of the 3-day event, which was packed with massive guests, keynotes, workshops, meet and greets, and so much more. Now, this had a massive guest lineup from people like Mr. Beast, Simon Squibb, Rio Ferdinand, Chris Do, and so much more. Now, I want to start off with the event structure. Now, throughout the days, there were literally hundreds of different talks that were scheduled from Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And there were heaps of different talks, seminars, and workshops that were given throughout the whole event. Now, the event was like in a massive place itself, all walking distance, but you would have to walk for a decent 10 to 15 minutes to get from one side to the other. And everything was hosted in and around that whole place. Now, for those that were attending, there was a 1 billion follower summit app that you could download, and it will show you the schedule for all the talks, all the workshops that are taking place over the 3 days. And then you could register to attend any of the ones that you wanted, which your ticket was eligible for. And then it will tell you the location of where it is, the time, and also how long it would be going for. So in that aspect, it was actually pretty organized. And for you who, if you would like to, schedule out your day accordingly and know everything that's going on and where and how long you have to kind of give for each talk, it was pretty good in that way. Now, some were group panels where it would have about 3 or 4 different creators that were talking about different experiences, and there'll be a host who's asking them the questions. And then some were solo events where it was just one content creator giving either their talk on how they've gotten to where they are now, things they've learned along the way, some tips, some tricks. And then there were also some other ones which were specifically workshops, which were a little bit more intentional with giving actionable tips and advice on what you can go and implement right now to improve your content. Now, there was something for every social media platform, from growing on YouTube to then growing on Instagram or TikTok or even Snapchat. There was a booth for each of them. There were like specific hubs for all the different social media platforms, which were really cool to see. And also all the talks were given according to which social media platform you want to focus on. You can start to, if you're someone who wants to focus on long form, you can go and attend all the YouTube stuff, or obviously everything else if you're looking at more the short form Instagram reels and stuff. So there was something for everyone, which was really cool. And no matter what you were into, if you were into content, you would enjoy this event. And as well as catering for all the different social media platforms, they were also catering for all the different types of skills that you would like to learn or hear about from content creators who have grown a large audience. So there were things from, talking about lighting to talking about being authentic with your personality in your personal brand, also predictions for content moving forward. So there was a category and topics for everyone and anyone who was into the content world, either starting out very recently and is still a beginner, or even people who are a bit more advanced and who have grown a following but still want to learn more. Essentially, everything was about content, personal branding, and business growth, which is literally the topics that I love. So it was very exciting for me to be there because it was talking about, it was the industry that I am heavily involved in with the things I do for work, what I'm trying to do with my personal brand journey as well. So I was just trying to absorb and consume as much of the knowledge as possible and learn as much as I can from people I was meeting, from the talks I was attending. It was really cool to see that there was something like this event that was able to cater for the content space, especially with how fast it has been growing. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the workshops. I attended a few of them. I attended one that was about audio. I attended some about lighting, and also just how to speak in your content. There was a lot of different workshops. However, the thing I will say is most were beginner level, which was, look, fair enough. I guess it is supposed to be catered so everyone can learn from it and understand, the topics that were discussed. But I was hoping that some would be a little bit more advanced or intermediate as well, because I love learning about tech and I know all these little details. For me, some of it was a little bit more beginner level. So it would have been nice for maybe them to label what level they would have categorized the workshops in, so that way you could know what to attend and maybe what isn't worth it for you depending on where you're at in your journey. There were still some that were really good to get insights from the content creators who have, grown a big audience and what they've done along the way in order for them to get to where they are. So that aspect of things was actually really interesting in the workshops, although maybe what they were teaching was beginner level, but just hearing them talk about it or even asking them questions was probably the most valuable part, I think was what I enjoyed the most. And just seeing how they go about certain things in their content. Like, of course, they were teaching a certain thing, but them just mentioning a few comments here and there about what's worked for them and what hasn't is also really good, valuable pieces of information that I was trying to take note of as much as I could. One of my favorite ones that I attended was the Simon Squibb talk. Was actually really good, and surprisingly, he was exactly like he is in his content. He was very inspirational, very motivating, very purpose-driven, which was really good to see because although I've watched a lot of his content, it was good to hear him talk in person and see his passion live. And it was honestly, it was inspiring to kind of make me rethink, okay, what is my purpose? What do I want to focus on? What is my mission? So that for me was really good in terms of, reframing and maybe focusing on my mindset. Another good one that was about content was also from Chris Do. I enjoyed that talk a lot. He was talking about the direction of personal branding and whether or not virality matters, and how he thinks at the moment that it's probably not the most important thing to focus on, and it's more about the quality of your audience and building that personal brand and a community. So that was also really good because I do believe that is going to be a big focus in content moving forward. I do think it's going to be less about the viral numbers and more about the actual value and the quality of the audience that you're building and the community that you're building around your personal brand, your business that you're building with it. So it's going to be a lot more, I think, focused in that direction. That's why I felt that his talk was very valuable. And it was insightful from someone who has seen virality and has, gotten millions of followers and subscribers. But the one thing I really liked was he was mentioning that essentially virality should be a byproduct of you building a quality audience. So he's pretty much saying, if you do go viral by being yourself, being authentic and building that community-based audience, then that's a bonus and it's still really good. It's not like you need to avoid going viral, but it's just you shouldn't only focus on that and jump on any trending waves just purely to get those numbers. And then he gave some cool examples of like people who have high follower counts but maybe don't have a community. When they try to host live events, nothing really happens, not a lot of people attend. And how then you also get the opposite, where people don't have the biggest amount of followers, but they will, if they're hosting something in person, everyone is going because they've built such a strong, relatable community. So it was really cool to see the differences there and what to focus on for myself too, as someone who is wanting to grow their personal brand. Now, another one of my favorite workshops, which I didn't expect to even go to be honest, was one by Simone Ferretti. I think I've pronounced his name right. And he pretty much is the lighting guy on Instagram and pretty much talks about how you can turn any content space into a well-lit studio. And his workshop was really beneficial because, as you can see, I don't have the best studio space at the moment, but it's really cool to see how much you can do with it by just making a few tweaks and adjustments. So he gave a small workshop there about some changes and some things to look for when you're filming content and the differences you could make that many people don't think of. So it was really good to hear a little bit about that. And it was interesting because I am now watching his content a little bit more. So I'm interested to see how I can turn smaller spaces into a nice looking studio with the right lighting and things like that. So that was very beneficial. And I think the best part about that is it shows and proves that you do not need a high budget in order to make something look good. You can do it just by getting some pretty decently priced lights or microphones and cameras and making it look like something that is a high production studio. I want to move on to the next part of this video and the review of this summit, and that is the people and the networking opportunities. Now, so many content creators were there either as guests or as attendees. So if you were looking to meet and network with some content creators, honestly, this was the event for it. Everyone was there. I'm talking from the biggest content creators in the world, obviously as the main guests, but also there was a lot of content creators who were there just attending, and they were some pretty big names, and whether it was on short form or on YouTube. So, and there were so many people that I didn't even know, but then when I'd go and search them up, they had a huge following. So everyone was there. Everyone wanted to be there. It is probably the biggest content event in the world. So if you're looking to try and meet some of them, whether it's just to, meet them, give some value, just have a chat to them, get an understanding of what they do, ask them some questions. Most people were very open to have a discussion with you, to be honest. No one really came across that they didn't want to talk to anyone. Every time I spoke to anyone, they were very happy to meet me or willing to talk and have a conversation, ask about what I do. And even for me, who has a small audience, they were still asking me questions about what I'm focusing on and my content. So it was really good to see that everyone was there to just meet each other and to network. So I think it was definitely a good time for people to collaborate, maybe on content ideas, or even, you know, whether it's business deals, or even if you want to just try and exchange details with someone who, you know, maybe you can help each other with certain opportunities. So it was actually really cool to see, even for me, who I didn't really go there too much to network. I was going there mainly just to, you know, absorb as much information as possible, but I still managed to network just by general conversations, and then one thing leads to another, and they're asking about you and what you do. So that was really cool to see that it was a very social event as well. And I really enjoyed that. I think it kind of is just because everyone is going for that reason. Everyone knows that it's pretty much going to be an event where all content creators around the world are going to be there. So people are going there being open to talk and meet others, no matter where you are in your content creation journey. So I think because of that reason, it was very easy to talk to a lot of people, which was really cool to see. Now, the last section I want to talk about in this review is what I personally didn't like and maybe what I would have changed. Now, I personally think there were far too many talks happening over the 3-day event. There were literally hundreds of different talks and panels and workshops that it was, I think, too much. Yes, there were big names there. Yes, there were people who can provide value, but I think it was just overwhelming with when you go onto the application and you see hundreds of different talks to go to over the 3 days. You kind of then just don't know which one to pick, which one's going to be good, which one's not. And because of that, it would lead me into my second thing I would change was I would have less speakers because all of them were very short. They were all about 20 to 30 minutes at most. Some workshops were longer, but in terms of just having content creators talk and giving, sharing their journey, it was very short, 20 minutes, no more than that. Some were 30, and I think me as someone who is trying to learn from these, big content creators, it would have been nice to have less talks but more quality and a longer length of time to listen to them. Maybe for Q&As, there were so many times where the content creator would want to have a Q&A section, but they're almost being kind of rushed off the stage because there was another one that was lined up straight after him. So there was no real time for a lot of Q&As, which was a little bit annoying, because I think that's where a lot of people would get the most benefit out of learning from these content creators. So that part was a little bit annoying for me, and it was a bit kind of frustrating because I really wanted to try and attend a lot of different talks, but because I was at another one, and then the one I wanted to go to was maybe at the same time or the complete other end of the event space, it was impossible for me to go to it. So that part I didn't really like, and I think I would have changed. Essentially, just do less, but have a higher quality and more lengths. That way you can have better conversations, more deep conversations with the audience who's attending these talks. And I think we would have valued that more. So that was the thing. I feel like some talks, even though they had big names attached to them, because they were so short, maybe you wouldn't think it's worth going to, especially if you were attending something else. Another thing that was a little bit annoying was that the signage wasn't that clear. Yes, there was a big sign at the actual destination of the stage name or whatever it is, but in terms of getting there, you really had to try and just figure it out yourself. There wasn't signs along the way pointing to where you need to go or how you need to get there. So it was a lot of kind of just figuring it out yourself, asking people, trying to pull up anyone that you find to ask them where something is. So that part was a little bit annoying because it slowed down how quick we could get from one spot to another. And because it was so big that you would need some time to get from one stage to a different stage if you're going to 2 different talks. But apart from that, everything was pretty good. There wasn't anything too crazy that I would change. It was just those few things there, mainly about the length of how long each talk was, especially from the bigger content creators. But all in all, it was a great event. It was very busy 3 days, very tiring as well. But it was a great experience. It was the first time I've attended something like this, like the biggest content event in the world, and seeing so many creators and meeting so many people. Honestly, I think it's a great opportunity to be able to attend, and I'm very grateful for that. So it was nice to see, and honestly, it made me even more motivated and hungry to now work on my content, work on my personal brand, and experiment a lot and try different things and really try to showcase my personality in my content. Because one thing I noticed, a key takeaway I would say from this event was personal branding and content creators is 100% the way forward, and it's there. They definitely have the biggest influence in social settings, in communities. You can see just the impact they have to their audience by just watching them be there at these events. So many people wanting to meet them, get value from them, ask them questions, and they really just want to learn as much as they can. So I think it just re-emphasizes that personal branding is the way forward. Even if you are someone who wants to build a business, you need to have a personal brand and then attach your business to that, because people will buy into you first as the personal brand, as that person they can relate to, and then they will look into what you're building as a business. This is why I say creator-led brands is going to be the future, and it's going to be a big focus this year. So I think going to this event just re-emphasized that for me and really made me hungry and motivated to grow my personal brand and see where it can take me, because honestly, seeing the impact you can have by building a good, loyal community and audience, it's really inspiring, and I'm excited to see what can come from this. So it was nice to see. I definitely recommend it to anyone who does get an opportunity to go in the future for any events like that. Just go and try, go and learn as much as you can. You will definitely be able to take some benefit out of things like this. And it will always have a positive impact on your content creation journey. So that is my review for the 1 billion follower content summit. I hope you enjoyed this breakdown, and I'll see you on the next video. Take care.